Good morning. Today we are working on PO63. I can interpret and write inequality statements. So an inequality is when you compare values. It compares values that are not necessarily equal. So they might be, but they might not be. So we don't have that balancing both sides of our equal sign. They might be equal or they might not be equal. So there are 4 symbols used with inequalities. We're going to complete the table with words or phrases that are used with each one. So when we see a verbal phrase, we will know what it is that we need to do. If it's less than, or greater than, or less than and equal to, or greater than and equal to. So when we see this symbol like this, we are comparing the left to the right. We always read from left to right. So we say the left side is less than the right side. And we know it's less than, we see that little crocodile wants to eat up the bigger number, so that bigger number is always going to be at the bigger side of our, it's at the bigger side of the symbol. So the words for this would be less than, fewer than, or below. Like if you're thinking about like a thermometer, it'd be below this amount. When we see this symbol, we can see that the left side is greater than the right side because that open end is going to gobble up the bigger number. So the left side is bigger than the right side. So it is greater than. So we would write that for our words. We could say greater than. We could say more than. Or we would say above. Now when we come to this symbol, we have that less than symbol with the line under it, means less than or equal to. So it could be that number, or it could be a number smaller than it. We could also say that the maximum number would be this, or it could be something less, but the highest it could go, the maximum amount would be this amount. You have a $10 bill, you could spend all $10 at the store, or less than that, but you can't go above it. So your maximum amount you could spend would be those $10. At most, you could spend $10. So you could spend less, but the most you could spend would be that 10. Or you could spend no more than that $10. Those are all different ways to say the same thing. So the opposite would be greater than or equal to. And that would be the minimum amount. In order to pass the class, you need to get 80%. So that's the minimum amount you could get of objectives passed would be 80%. You could pass more, but the minimum amount would be that 80%. You need to get at least 80% objectives mastered, or no less than 80%. So just different ways of saying the same thing. Now, when we graph these inequalities, there are certain ways that we graph it. If it is less than or greater than, but not equal to, we do open circles to represent that it cannot actually be this number, but it has to be a number less than it or a number greater than it. But if we have an equal sign under it, we're going to close in our circle to say, yes, it could be 10 for the $10, or it could be something less than it. Or it could be that 80% or a number greater than it. So if it can be that, if it can be equal to it or more, equal to it or less, we fill the circle in. So when we look at our graphs of these inequalities, we can see that x is less than 8. So our number on the number line is 8. We have an open circle because it's less than, and our arrow points to the left because it covers all the numbers that are less than 8, going to the left on that number line. When we look at the next one, we see less than or equal to. So we have that closed in circle over the 2. And all the numbers, it could be 2 or it could be numbers less than 2. So our arrow points to the left because it could be numbers less than 2. On this last example, we see our number is 0, so our circle goes above the 0. We see that it does have that equal sign under it, so it can be 0, or it could be a number greater than 0. So our arrow goes to the right because it could be greater than 0. So I'm going to erase so I can scroll up. Now, writing each inequality statement a second way, using an inequality symbol, write it as a verbal phrase, and then graph it on a number line. So when we look at this, when I say write it a second way, we're going to flip everything. So n could be greater than 11, or I could say 11 is less than n. So they both mean the same thing. We're just flipping the way that we're saying it. Because n we know is a bigger number than 11. It could be 15. 11 is less than n. 11 would be less than 15. So they mean the exact same thing, but you just have to remember, if you flip n to be on the right, you have to flip that inequality symbol. So if n is bigger, when we come down to flipping it, n still has to be bigger than that 11. Then it says, write it as a verbal phrase. So I'm going to look at our original statement, n is greater than 11, and I'm going to write it out just like that. So I could say n is greater than 11. I could say n is more than 11. N is above 11. When we write those verbal phrases, we could use any of those key words that had fallen underneath those symbols. There's not just one exact way it has to be. You could use any of those. The last step is to graph it. When we graph our inequality, there are 3 steps to it. Our first step is to make our number line. Our number here is 11, so that's all I have to represent on our number line, just that it's 11. Second step is my circle. So I'm going to put my circle above my number. Is it going to be open or closed? So remember, if there is no equal sign, it cannot be actually 11, because there's no equal sign under it, so it's going to be an open circle. And then I say n is greater than 11, so all those numbers that are bigger than 11 are to the right. 12, 13, 14, 15. So I put my arrow going to the right. So if I look at my second one, I'm going to write it a second way, so that means I'm going to flip everything over. I'm going to put that -2 on the left, which means I have to flip my inequality from less than to greater than, and then my n goes on the right. So now I need to put it as a verbal phrase. N is less than, I need to spell it correctly, less than -2. Okay, I could say -2 is greater than n, right? means the same thing, but you have to remember when you flip it, you have to flip the symbol along with flipping where the n and that -2 are. Last part is to graph it. So I have my 3 steps. First step, make my number line. My number is -2, so I'm putting that on my number line. Second step is my circle. Is it going to be open or closed? Open circle means it cannot be -2. There is no equal sign underneath my less than symbol. So it has to be an open circle. So n is less than -2, so it's all these numbers on the number line that are smaller than -2, -3, -4, -5. They're all smaller, so I go to the left. The last one in this row. I need to flip it, writing it a second way. So if I put -7 first, I have to flip it from greater than to less than or equal to, and my n goes on this right-hand side. Writing it with a verbal phrase. N is greater than or equal to. Again, I could use other words. I could say n is at least, or not -2, -7. I could say n is at least -7, or n is no less than -7. I could use any of those phrases that fall under the greater than or equal to symbol. So now I graph it. I make my number line. My number is -7, so I put that on my number line. Second step, do my circle. Is it going to be open or closed? I see that it has that equal to symbol in there, so I know to fill in my circle. Yes, it can be -7. Then I have to decide which way is my arrow going, and is it greater than or equal to -7? So any of these numbers that are bigger than -7 could be my n. So it's a filled in circle with the arrow going to the right. You are going to do those bottom 3 on your own. Let's look at our second page. Now it says, write each situation as an inequality statement, then graph it on a number line. This is doing the same thing we did on that first page, except we have to figure out what the inequality statement is based on the words that were given in our word problem. So your mom gives you $20 for a trip to Target. Show how much money you can spend at Target. So you're given $20. You could spend all $20, or you could spend less than $20, but you only have $20 in your pocket. You can't spend more than $20. So our inequality statement, we could say n is less than or equal to 20. Okay. So you have to write your inequality statement, pick it out, you're thinking about what words that you're hearing when you say that word problem. What would that inequality statement look like? Is it less than or greater than? Could it be equal to? Then you're going to graph it. So my number is 20, so I'm putting that on my number line. Second step, do my circle. Is it going to be a filled-in circle or open circle? I see that it can be $20. I have a full $20 bill in my pocket. I could spend it all. So because I can spend it all, I'm filling in my circle, and then I'm going to decide which way my arrow could go. I only have $20 in my pocket. I can't spend more than $20, but I can spend less than 20 and put some in my piggy bank for next time. So my graph would look like this with 20 on my number line. My circle is filled in because it can be 20, and my arrow going to the left because it could be numbers less than 20. Let's do one more together. You bring your dog inside when it's colder than -15 degrees. Show the temperatures at which your dog is indoors. So, I'm going to put a T for temperature. Doesn't matter what variable you use. I just figure, hey, let's do a T for temperature. That's just kind of fun and different. I know my number is -15. So I need to decide, is it less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to? So you bring your dog inside when it's colder than -15. Not when it's -15 or colder, but it's colder than. So it's not going to be equal to. And if it's colder than -15, it is number smaller than -15. Think about that thermometer. We're going down, down, down. So my temperature has to be less than -15 degrees. Now I need to do my graph. So first step of the graph is to do the number line. My number is -15. Second step, do your circle. Is it open or closed? If it cannot be -15, it is open. I do not see an equal sign under there, so I'm going to leave my circle open. And it's any temperatures that are below -15, less than -15, colder than -15. So my arrow goes to the left, because I'm not going to keep my dog inside if it's 20 degrees out. He can go outside at that temperature, but if it's -20, too cold, keep them inside. So you need to make sure that you do your inequality statement and that you do your 3 parts to your graph. You have your number line, you have your circle decided if it's open or closed, and you have your arrow pointing the correct direction. So you are going to work on the rest of these word problems, working out what your inequality statement is. What is it that your problem is telling you? Deciding, is it less than or greater than? Could it be equal to that number? Those are the big things to ask yourself. Refer back to the page before. Sometimes there might be a verbal phrase that we don't have written in our table that you might want to include in the table once you figure out which symbol it falls under. And then when you do your graph, please remember you have all 3 parts to do. You need your number line with the number marked on it. You need your circle. Is it open or closed? And you need your arrow pointing in the correct direction. We will go over this tomorrow when I am back. If you have questions that you couldn't figure out, make sure you ask them when we go over this. I hope you are well, and I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.